Welcome to Film Strip. These podcasts are spoiler-filled as we discuss the plots, characters, and themes of the films in review. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504(c)(2), Title 17.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay.
I'm Lindsey.
And I'm Ron.
We're here to talk about the 2006 Black Christmas reboot because it's Christmas in July, so why not? Starring Katie Cassidy, Michelle Trachtenberg, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and Lacey Chabert. Written by Glenn Morgan and Roy Moore, directed by Glenn Morgan. On a $9 million budget, grossed over $21 million at the box office, got $30 million in home sales somehow in all that time. Wow, y'all, like we said, it's Christmas in July, so why not do some Christmas trash? And I want to hear from you first, Lindsey, on your background with Black Christmas, this remake, and also possibly the original, if you're familiar with it.
Yeah, I watched the original, I think for the first time last summer, actually, I think. And then I watched this one for the first time like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I just watched it again today to brush back up on it. But that's it. It's a pretty straightforward history for me. But I've seen them both.
Very cool. Very cool. Ron, what about you?
Well, I have seen Black Christmas, both this one and the original, I don't know how many times. I watch this one probably twice a year, once for actual Christmas and once for Christmas in July. I watch the original one also for Black Christmas, or for Christmas and Christmas in July. I have not seen the third remake because I don't necessarily love some of the people involved with it. I'll eventually cave and watch it at some point, but today is not that day. So I didn't really have to rewatch this for the thing because for the podcast recording because I've seen it within the last 7 months, so I'm still pretty familiar with it. And honestly, it doesn't really matter because, people show up, sorority kids get drunk, they get stabbed. Lots of basic cable actors yell at each other, and then more stabbing happens.
Yes, lots of stabbing. I'm going to say something that might be, movie podcast blasphemous here. I've seen this way more times than I've ever seen the original. I've only seen the original through maybe twice in my life. And one time when I was, I don't know, a lot younger, and everybody kept talking about how, John Carpenter kind of ripped off the Michael Myers point of view from this and, something else. And I can never remember what the other something else was. I finally broke down, rented this one weekend from a video store on a VHS, of course. And I watched it. And the thing that stuck with me wasn't anything about the movie. It was, I remember Margot Kidder was in it. And I remember it was directed by the guy that brought us Christmas Story and Porky's. And it just blew me away that Bob Clark made a Christmas movie about abortion. Because it's not a horror movie per se. And then when I found out, they did the remake, I don't think I paid attention to it when it came out, but I know I rented it and watched it because it was just in the slew of, remake horror central in the wake of Scream and all this. I kind of feel like this was the movie that killed the momentum that the original Scream brought back to us. And this one sort of nosedived it again until we got into prestige horror for a little bit. And it was a successful movie, but holy smokes, is it just hot people getting beat up like this? There's not a lot going on in this. And, but again, I've seen it way more times than I've seen the originals. So, and I think because it's kind of like cotton candy. It just goes down real easy, but there ain't a whole lot of it, in terms of substance.
I think the thing that first drew me to this movie were the many connections to the X-Files through Glenn Morgan.
Yeah.
For a while there, I was fully on board with anything any of the X-Files writers were involved with, writers and producers.
James Wan. There's a litany of them. So
yeah, and James Wan is still doing pretty good stuff with American Horror Story. Did the last couple. Mm-hmm. He didn't do anything the season previous to this one, but he's still putting in work in the Ryan Murphy verse, so he's never looking for work.
again, when this movie is made, we're in this big run of we're remaking everything that had been made in the 70s and sometimes the 80s. We'd already gone through the Texas Chainsaw, a couple of remakes. That series has been remade several times, but those Platinum Dunes ones, particularly that first one, is, if you go back and watch that is one of the most well shot, cheap ass horror movies you will ever see. Like, the guy that directed that made all the cool 90s rock videos that you like, that you didn't know he directed. That it's good looking stuff and holds up a lot better than some of these other things. But we were pre Rob Zombie doing Halloween, but we had already done, House of Wax and 100 other things. Everything had kind of gotten the reboot treatment that wasn't a major franchise, I'll say. And again, it was all in this sense of everyone trying to be Scream, because you get hot young people from television and you put them on the TV and build a mystery, and blood and gore and sex and sometimes not in that order all happen, on the movie. And usually slap a good post grunge pre load metal soundtrack on top of it, and there you go. You got yourself a horror movie. So
funnily enough, we talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake in the first bracket of the big thing that we're doing with friend of the show Anthony and future friends of the show, and also myself and Lindsey, the big horror movie bracket that Anthony puts together every year, and then everyone criticizes him about it, and yet somehow never offers to help.
No, of course not. So that'll be out later this year,
including
I can't wait to hear that again. Yeah, well,
yeah,
y'all are featured guests on that. I can't wait to hear that too, because that last one was awesome. But well, I guess before we get any further, let's go ahead and get into a plot summary. So, Ron, once again, please bring your Christmas magic to Black Christmas.
Well, Jay, as you put it best, hot people get cut the fuck up by a yellow dude and his sister/daughter. After the grossest sex scene in film strip history. Now, my plot summary, because it's me, is much longer and more pointless than that. But you pretty much got it. You pretty much got it in one there. But in the interest of filling in some time, the opposite, like this movie's 13-minute ending credit sequence, I will now fill some time by doing a long plot summary.
Please.
Feel free to imagine the soft jingling of sleigh bells in the background. It's Christmas at Delta Alpha Kappa, and the girls are in full holiday spirit. Or rather, they're not in holiday spirit. As Claire writes Christmas cards in her room, she hears a weird noise in the closet. It's a fake scare from the air handler. She goes back to her work, then finds herself with a trash bag over her face and a pin stabbed into her eye. Unsurprisingly, at the same time, a local guard at the insane asylum goes to check on the notorious serial killer Billy Lenz, who butchered his family 15 Christmases ago. Billy is nowhere to be found, but he left a note saying, "I'll be home for Christmas." Billy emerges out of hiding, stabs the guard to death with a sharpened candy cane he got for Christmas. Thanks a lot, Santa. And then kills that same random mall Santa and escapes the asylum. I'm not going to do this voice the entire time because it makes me want to smash my head with a brick.
I was going to say, are you doing your William Shatner line reading for the voice?
And weirdly enough, someone getting smashed with a brick is not one of the kills in this movie, but it should have been. Anyway, back to Skank Central. We meet the girls. They're all interchangeable, so I'm just going to try to give their actress names because it doesn't really matter. Katie Cassidy, Lacey Chabert, a.k.a. the Queen of Hallmark movies. Crystal Lowe, a.k.a. the significantly older 28-year-old teenager from Teen Wolf. Jessica Harmon, who I don't know anything she's been in. Mary Elizabeth Winstead from Scott Pilgrim and probably other things, but mostly Scott Pilgrim. Michelle Trachtenberg from one of those dumbass CW shows Jay watched. And Kathleen Cole from Canada.
And Harriet the Spy.
That's right. She was Harriet the Spy, which I also didn't watch because it was a dumbass Nickelodeon show.
And she was in Pete and Pete.
You have a young daughter. Harriet the Spy is in your future.
I mean, it probably is, but right now I can continue to live blissfully in my ignorance in true American fashion, or in true Canadian fashion, if this
I was going to say, wrong country.
But yes, where was I before I was so importantly interrupted? Oh, also, their house mother is comedy legend Andrea Martin, the alcoholic Mrs. Mack. She's the only one who really has a character, but also she's also pretty much the most famous one to anybody who watched SCTV. So, it's kind of a toss-up there. The blizzard outside gets worse and worse, so the girls decide to pass their remaining time on planet Earth passing out Christmas presents and fighting with each other. Except for Jessica Harmon, who's mad about her ex-boyfriend Kyle, who's also currently dating the Katie Cassidy character, and some sex tape that he apparently has leaked online. The cranky Megan hears noise up in the ceiling, and then she goes to investigate, thinking it's some sort of sorority bullshit prank. Apparently, Attic Time is a fun game that these kids play, so everyone thinks, oh, that weird noise in the attic isn't some sort of animal or possibly the serial killer who just escaped from the asylum. It's someone doing a thing to make fun of me. She finds
Attic Time.
But hey, she does find some unexpected sorority bullshit up there. It's Claire's dead body, propped up in a rocking chair, Mrs. Bates style, with a bag on her head and no eyeballs. Megan then gets the trash bag treatment, and her eyes are also gouged out. Are you kind of getting a theme here? There's lots of eyeball shit. Lucio Fulci somewhere is smiling in his grave, except he might not have been dead by this point, and he might still be alive now. But he's Lucio Fulci, so he probably lives in the grave. Downstairs, the not dead girls and Mrs. Mack talk about the house tradition of buying a present for Billy Lynn's. Mary Elizabeth Winstead said it was stupid and refused to do it, so Mrs. Mack punishes her by dumping some exposition on her face. Billy was a boy who was born with that yellow bastard disease, like that guy from Sin City, who was abused by his hateful mother. She killed Billy's drunk father with a hammer and buried his body in the crawl space with the help of her impotent lover. Billy, because he was a witness, ends up getting locked in the attic, Hunchback of Notre Dame style. After Mrs. Lynn fails at getting pregnant by her impotent boyfriend, she turns to the only other man in the house, Billy. He's 12, but apparently he's a very advanced 12, because after a brutal and gross sexual assault, Billy's sister/daughter Agnes, is born. When Agnes Targaryen hits 8, Billy escapes. He apparently can't be contained. He's some sort of sunshine-colored Houdini. And he gouges out one of his sister's eyes using the trash bag method, eats it, and then kills his mother's lover with a Christmas ornament. Then, to establish the theme that this is a Christmas movie, he strangles his mother with Christmas lights, bludgeons her corpse with a rolling pin, and makes delicious Christmas cookies out of her dead body. Excuse me. Too many pronouns, pal. The police find Agnes still alive and Billy eating his mom cookies. It's the holiday treat all the yellow kids are going crazy for.
Yummy.
Maybe I shouldn't say yellow kids. Maybe I should say jaundice kids. That sounds less racist. Although
I didn't even think about that.
Although I think it's okay to be racist against a guy who kills and eats his mother.
Yeah.
Although you've got plenty of other reasons that aren't skin color based to hate him, but he is like a weird, gross Nick Stahl yellow. In this
yes. It's a very Sunny D, washed out yellow.
That's why, as a kid, I always said, "Why don't you just pick the purple stuff?" Anyway, back to this ridiculous plot. Back in the present day, the girls start getting breathy, mysterious phone calls. A drunk Crystal Lowe provokes Billy by saying that she'll kill him. The calls they've been getting have been coming from their missing friends' cell phones. Kyle, the boyfriend, shows up as a bullshit jump scare, triggering a stupid argument while also trying to hide his sex tape, apparently. Downstairs, Claire's half-sister Lee shows up looking for her. Meanwhile, around the Christmas tree, there's not rockin', but there is a present from Billy. It's Agnes's doll from the flashback scene, given to her by Mrs. Lynch. Everyone starts to suspect everyone else, Thing style. And then Mary Elizabeth Winstead finds an evidence dungeon in the Canadian girl's room. While she's looking at that evidence dungeon, everything downstairs is going to hell. Crystal Lowe is throwing up. The couple's breaking up. Billy peeps on Crystal Lowe in a tasteful yet also not tasteful shower sequence, and then all the lights go out. Lacey Chabert is sent to the crawl space to fix it, which, speaking of, that's a terrible place to put your fuse box, and please don't do that. Not just because you might get killed by a gardening tool, but because it's probably very wet and gross in the crawl space. So, maybe just move it to your unfinished cellar dirt basement, or put it on the outside of the house like a normal person. Anyway, more scary phone calls from dead people's phones, more screaming, lots of blood stains are getting found, and hey, look, there's a decapitated head in the car. The head refuses to go get help. The police refuse to help. So Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Andrea Martin try to get the car cleaned off of ice and to drive for help themselves. In a fun shakeup of the usual, Mary Elizabeth Winstead gets killed on the inside of the car while Andrea Martin watches helplessly from the outside. Of course, Andrea Martin has to die next, but she's killed by a falling icicle rather than Billy, which makes it the perfect crime. Two of the girls go in the garage to investigate, and another girl gets attacked by the bag killer and escapes, only to find herself scalped with an ice skate. Borned up from his killing spree, Billy decides it's time to molest Crystal Lowe. In a surprise twist, guess who's alive? It's Agnes, and she's helping Billy kill, interrupting the molestation by killing Teen Wolf's girlfriend with some kind of glass unicorn thing, which looked pretty pointy. So we're down to like 3 girls and Kyle, the ex-boyfriend. Great, let's get them out of the way. 3 of them head up to the attic because they're stupid. And then Kyle gets killed. The 2 surviving girls find a Christmas tree decorated with the bodies of several of their dead friends. Agnes pops out of nowhere and attacks, fighting with Katie Cassidy while the other girl falls through the floor. The 2 fighting girls knock over some candles and boom, they kick off a fire. See, kids, that's why back in the day it was okay to light your Christmas tree up with candles, but these days don't do it because that smell of burning plastic, once it gets in your clothes, it'll never come out. The 2 brawlers fall in between the walls, and Cloak, the older sister, gets trapped. Billy on one side, Agnes on the other. Death in the middle. Except not, because she pounds on the wall, and Katie Cassidy bashes a hole in the plaster and lathe and drags her sister to freedom, which takes a lot longer than this movie would have you think, because I own a house with the very same kind of walls, and doing any kind of cutting through or you couldn't bash through the walls that easily. It's a real pain in the ass.
Moreover, the fact that Katie Cassidy weighs 85 pounds and is doing that with her bare hands. Anyway.
No, she has a dumbbell, like one of those 5-10 pound weights.
Oh, whatever. Her friggin' CrossFit kettlebell bullshit couldn't do it either.
Well, anyway, they don't have to worry about repairing that hole because the house burns down. And presumably, Billy and Agnes are also dead because, it's a house burned down. Except it's a horror movie, so they're probably not dead, and there's still some time left. So the 2 go to the hospital. Billy pulls a Voorhees and kills a morgue attendant with a surgical saw. Agnes pops out of the ceiling to kill Lee, breaking her neck. When Christian Cloak returns, she finds her sister's bloody Christmas gift. Pretty nice watch, and knows something's wrong. Because Christmas gifts aren't normally covered with blood. She hits the oh shit button, but nobody notices because there's some carolers or some bullshit, or it's a hospital and everyone's drunk. Agnes drops through the ceiling, but then she gets blasted to death with the defibrillator. Billy also blasts through the ceiling too, and after a chase through the stairs, Billy gets an MST3K style railing kill, pushed over the stair rail and falls to his death, being impaled on a Christmas tree as festive credits roll.
For 30 minutes, it seems like.
Yeah, but also this plot summary took 30 minutes. And
well done on the plot summary, Ron. I thoroughly enjoyed. That was more fun than watching this. Just to be real, because if only the movie moved at the pace that you had that plot summary, or with any of the humor we had. Because for a movie that is, it says it's 90 minutes. We've talked about it. It's maybe an hour 18, like functional movie. Man, this thing drags. It really takes forever to get anywhere. And I don't know. Yeah, did y'all feel that? Or is that just me?
I felt that way, especially toward the end. And for what they made, for their lack of efficiency, I think they made up for in ick factor. So that was all right, but I didn't get the eyeball thing. Like, why do we love eating eyeballs so much? That was the only bit. I mean, I get he was, he was Hannibaling it up and, liked eating people, but I don't know, like, are the eyeballs, I guess, the delicacy part?
I took that as Agnes was the one doing a lot of the eyeball stuff because Billy had done that to her. And of course, Billy obviously would be the original eyeball stabber of the family. That was where I read that.
So Billy stabbed her eyeball first.
When they were kids.
And then because of that, Agnes was obsessed with eyeballs.
Yes.
That makes sense. But Billy still ate her eyeball first. He was still the first one to do it.
Yeah, he was the originator of the eyeball crime.
Interesting.
But
I like that thought, though.
Well, Agnes shows up. She's the little princess, and he's understandably yellow with envy.
Yes.
Oh, God. Yeah, can we just talk about that?
Yeah, we need to talk about that for a minute.
Wait, before we talk about this, Lindsey, I'm surprised you didn't reference the Hank Williams Jr. song "Family Tradition." And I'm surprised that during my incredibly long plot summary, I forgot to use the joke I was going to do where I talked about Billy. I was going to introduce him and say, and he was all yellow in Coldplay style.
Well, okay, that's a good segue into it because the conceit of this is that he suffers from jaundice, the liver disease, and which can turn your skin yellow, but I don't think it turns you into this pale crayon situation that's going on here.
But it's also not rare. And they say at the beginning he had a rare liver disease that turned him yellow. And I was like, okay, so jaundice, 3 to 7% of all. I looked it up because I was curious as to how common or uncommon it was. Because I know a lot of babies that are jaundiced when they're born, but most people, I guess this is all thanks to Google and AI, but I guess I'm guessing it was Gilbert's syndrome because you can continue to be yellow through adulthood. It yellows your skin, but it's not fatal or anything. You can live with it your whole life. It's not an issue. So I was like, maybe that's what it was. And some people can get pretty yellow, but it's still not rare. It wouldn't be considered a rare disease. So I don't know.
Yeah,
that's my input on it. I just thought
I'm with you. I didn't think it was all that rare either. But I don't know, Rod. Do you have any insights into this or why they continued to go with it?
And why did it make his mom so upset that was she upset that he was yellow or upset that he looked like his dad? And did she hate his dad before she got pregnant with him?
I think the implication is she hated him because he looked like his dad, not so much that he was a creepy yellow bastard.
Also, does she not know how genetics works? And maybe not realize that, after she has a baby with her son, it might also look like her son who looks like her ex, and then she won't like that baby.
The saddest part of all this, Lindsey, is you had a perfect opportunity to do a Gilbert Gottfried impression when you said Gilbert syndrome, and you refused to take it. And I'm very sad.
On one hand, you have this son that you hate, and on this other one, this other thing you pay no.
He's a yellow. He's a creepy yellow bastard.
You're looking at the yellow sun, and you don't know why this is over here. You just forget about. I'm doing Beverly Hills Cop 2, obviously Gilbert Gottfried, but yeah.
And this is where people hit pause on our podcast because they don't want to hear Gilbert Gottfried.
Well, yeah. Well, it's not the worst impressions we've ever done. Let's be real.
That's fair. That's fair.
And then Billy eats her eyeball. The aristocrats.
I mean, that could have been part of this too. Well, yeah. Okay. I have to say this though, as the person who's worked on college campuses as long as I have, when you get around Christmas time, y'all, and I know it's this conceit always, we want to do something at Christmas time because campuses are pretty when they get snowed on, and that is true. But I'm going to tell you something, man. College students have been bailing out before exams started, years before this movie was made. The sorority houses are gone. They are empty by the time you get to December. These people are not there. This is it's a I know it's a nitpick, but it's a hard conceit for me to ever get around because I just know too much about campuses, and it's just not doesn't make any sense. Like, just set it during exam week or something like that. I don't know.
Even when I took winter classes in on winter break classes, I was gone like 2 weeks before Christmas started, like, or at least a week
Yeah.
before Christmas for sure. So I don't know. Why don't you just set it like, yeah, like Jay said, set it the week of exams, make it someplace cold like New Hampshire. Like this movie is
Yeah.
apparently set in New Hampshire. I assume it's cold
Well,
there. Who knows?
like if you're in a sorority or something like that, like, and you're going to celebrate Christmas with your friends, it's like you're going to do that before Christmas anyway. It doesn't have to be 3 days before or whatever. You just do that. You celebrate Christmas all month, pretty much.
Just like Friendsgiving, Friendsmas. You
Yes.
you do the friend thing, and then everybody pieces out to go visit your family, unless you're like Harry Potter and Ron Weasley, and then you just kind of hang out at the school. But there's usually only a couple people that, stay
Yeah.
around during
Them
those
and Nearly Headless
holidays.
Nick,
Yeah.
hanging out doing stuff. But can we talk about too though that? And I know it's a trope, but that all of these people absolutely fucking hate each other. These girls hate each other. And I know there's always like a little bit of competition and stuff between friends and closeness, but every one of these people cannot stand each other. It would make more sense if they were like in rival sororities or something like that.
Yeah. They do act a lot like siblings, and I know it's going to shock you guys. I was not in a sorority, so I don't know what that is really like to be in a sorority house, but I don't know. They do act like they're together all the time and they're comfortable enough with each other to, kind of jab, but know that, I don't know. Some of them they legit don't like, because there's always the weird girl or the NASCAR girl or whatever. But
Can we talk about the fact that the one girl is in her room alone, drinking red wine, wrapping presents? Like, there's like a lot going on there. I needed to know more of I mean, was she the one that was on the sex tape? Because again, all of these people look so interchangeable. It's hard to figure out who was who.
yes, she was the one that was on the sex tape. If my memory serves me correct.
She was the one that was like the whatever Baldwin brother was in Flatliners doing that shit.
Yeah.
And that's
on the sex tape, and now she's drinking wine and wrapping present for her sister.
Right. So they replaced the fact that the county boyfriend knocked one of the girls up in the first movie with he made a sex tape. Because I guess in modern sensibilities they would have been safe, right? That's the conceit. I don't know. That just doesn't work as like I know that's embarrassing, and I'm not we make fun of it or whatever, but as a movie conceit, like this is not as impactful as we might be having a kid and we're both like very young people and all the stuff with that. Yeah.
Well, that was more of a plot point in the original, and I think that was replaced with, we got less of those important little plot points that could be used against them to torment them, and that was replaced with, we got more background on Billy.
Yeah.
Which I like that, though. I mean, as gross and weird as it was, because I feel like we didn't really get any of that in the original. And it was like, all right, this is just like a weird unseen Art the Clown that just exists in this attic. But we don't ever get to see him.
He's like
we don't know why he is the way he is.
He's like a reverse Oedipus in that he still had sex with his mom, but rather than gouging out his own eyes with a brooch and then becoming like a wandering sage through the next couple of plays in the cycle, he stabs out everyone else's eyes.
Ron, I'm so mad at myself for not making that connection.
I'm just sitting here like impressed, but also horrified that you equated these things with each other. But it's a great reference.
But
I
mean, that's
no, you're right. You're 100% right.
it's just Greek drama all over, man. You know.
That's
Yeah,
exactly what it is.
It's Greek drama with a completely forgettable soundtrack and a Canadian accent. That's what it is. So
I mean, what is a Greek chorus if not, like 8 or so interchangeable, vaguely brunette girls?
yes, and the one blonde. So which okay, I know we haven't gotten to it yet, but I'll just skip ahead real quick. I remember nothing about the music in this other than it was just completely generic 2000s rock, and the fact that it's a Canadian style movie and they didn't get one friggin' Nickelback song in this is really like makes me mad. Like those guys would have totally let you have one. Like they don't care. And especially this era Nickelback, they would have been into it. I can't believe they didn't have one.
Who's that Canadian band that they all love? Oh yeah, the Tragically Hip. You should have got at least one Tragically Hip song. I feel like even setting it in New Hampshire, that's like close enough that there's going to be some Canadian lead over.
I think this movie's not cool enough for Tragically Hip, by the way. But go ahead.
But the sound design and the sound mixing was wildly good. I was watching it. I watched it on my phone both times, actually, with headphones in. So I got, a front row seat to all of the sound, and like the sound of the cookie cutter going into his mom's back was like so it was so good though. Yeah. And then it was perfectly overlaid with the score, and the sound mixing was excellent, I thought.
Did lots of like good stabby Foley work in this.
Yeah.
Like you can hear all the gush and like a lot of watermelons died to bring us this movie is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And and it's okay because it does sound. I mean, if I think Glenn Morgan and everybody's doing this new like, look, y'all, we like there may be some Greek tragedy going on, but we know what this is. And we're here for the guts and the gore, and they give us that. I mean, a lot of times these movies get criticized for being PG-13 and safe, and this one most definitely is not. Like it goes hard to the R, no doubt about that.
Yeah, and I think it was, I don't know if she did all of the sound, but the music anyway. Shirley Walker, she died the month before this movie was released, so November of 2006. So she never got to see the finished product. But overall, I mean, which is a bummer for her, but this was her last movie that she worked on. Well, I don't know if it was the last. I shouldn't say that, but it was definitely one of the lasts if it wasn't.
So I know I've lodged a lot of complaints about this or whatever, but I will say the one thing about this, even though they are all interchangeable and you can't keep character names apart, which is why you wisely just called them by their actors' name, their names run in the plot summary. I will say that the cast clearly had established chemistry and had like good banter back and forth. Like Lacey Chabert, Michelle Trachtenberg have good lines together. Katie Cassidy's fun with Crystal Lowe at the door and they're yelling at the other girl. Like there's a little bit of lived-inness to this, and I think I credit that to people that have worked on television and ensemble casts. I think kind of just fall into a shorthand of knowing how to do that. Lindsey, you're the actor. You tell me if I'm wrong, but I kind of feel like people that have worked in that medium know how to give and take and sort of build that rapport so that you forget about that it's just a bunch of actors in the scene and you just sort of watch them fall together and you sort of know their friendship based on the way they play off each other.
Yeah, that is a big part of it. Being in those situations before helps. Also having a director yelling at you, pacing, that's a big thing too. Or faster, whatever their choice of word is. So it's all about, what was a recent director? She liked to say, squeeze the air out of it. So like just keep it moving. And I think they understood that assignment. I really like sorry, go on, Ron.
I was just going to say, as George Lucas famously said on the set of Star Wars, he had two directions. One was faster, one was better.
Yeah.
Faster and more intense. Yeah.
It makes a difference. It does. I like the banter back and forth when they're calling. I can't remember which characters they were. Upstairs in the house when they're knocking on the doors, telling everyone to come down. And she was like, I know you're an only child. This is how you have to do it. and she just yells in the room. And then
I'm taking all your presents. All that stuff. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Like they had there were some good moments like that kind of made this fun for a little bit. But I do feel like there was somewhere a struggle in here where they decided we got it. There is no backstory to Billy and the whole Agnes situation in the first movie. That's part of the mystery of it. It's also how Bob Clark wasn't really trying to tell that story. He was talking about other things, but whatever. But in this one, they said no, we're definitely going to have that. But almost like the way Rob Zombie's Halloween remake is, you can tell the part that he was way more interested in was the backstory, and then we have to remake the rest of the shit. And I feel like when it gets to we're going to just slaughter everybody, well, we're just going to fast forward through that. Like that's the way I felt like this went. Like the Billy flashback stuff and the taking the time to get there and giving us all that, and even that wild insane asylum scene, like there was a lot put into that. I thought, man, like it starts with this could be really cool if we just stayed in that place. Like I almost think it would be more interesting if we stayed and we just saw Billy attack Agnes and then they team up as kids and whack the family and like the neighborhood and stuff like that. That would be a Black Christmas.
I was trying to think of a funny brother sister quip, and the only thing that went through my head was because they're the two best friends that anyone can have.
I mean, it would work.
I'm picturing John Ralphio and his sister from Parks and Rec, and the dad being Henry Winkler, famous Jewish man Henry Winkler.
Yeah. What was that thing when they're in the graveyard and they're like, oh shoot, I can't remember. What was that stupid episode? It was great. Oh, don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Exactly. Don't be suspicious.
Yes. So this movie is all about the be suspicious because I am yellow and stick out against the world. I mean, you can't hide the way that they do this character, this actor. What did y'all think about the overkills of the guards and the getting out of the mental institution and the flesh cookie redux there?
I love the guards fucking with Santa when he was coming in, or just like clearly doesn't belong there, and you work in an insane asylum, you might as well have a little bit of fun. So that was fun. That worked for me. What was the other thing you asked about?
The fact that when Billy breaks out, he goes full ham in the slaughter of everybody. Like this, I don't know. I think this movie understood the people making this movie understood what they were trying to do, and they just leaned heavy into the gore factor of it.
Yeah. But it wasn't just. I mean, he had interesting kills. It wasn't like the same type of kill every time. The candy cane inspired. Yeah.
It's very Jason parts 6 through 8, like in terms of variety kill.
The blood explosion from inside the car.
Right.
Yeah. Was one of my favorite ones, I think.
That was well done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good effect. Good practical effect.
This movie was, short on plot, but it was long on good kills, I think. And they had a good variety, and they used a lot of blood, which I really appreciate. Because this is about the time that everybody started to switch to that CGI blood. No, thank you. Give me some corn syrup. Let's make a mess.
Well, Ron, I perfected the CGI blood in the Rambo movie that I made. All the CGI blood and the explosions, and when I get to 50 cal and I turn people into meat for 45 minutes. I think I killed Ron.
I think you did
because he's on mute.
Oh, he's on mute.
I think he was doing Stallone.
I think he was. Sorry about that. I'm having some technological issues. I did all the special effects for Rambo myself. I did it on. I had a Commodore. I had a Amigo.
No, I was Steven Soderbergh, and I had my iPhone 3S out there shooting that. I did that. First.
I called Neville Dean and Taylor, and I said, "Hey, you guys did one of your movies on an iPhone. Can I do that too?" And they said, The number you have called is not in service. Please hang up and try again. So I took that as a yes.
If Neville Dean Taylor made this movie, like people would have been skating off the side of a cliff into
If
the
Neville Dean
frozen
Taylor
river.
had made this movie, it would be the most amazing movie ever.
It would be fast and bloody. That's for darn sure. I will stick up for that Ghost Rider second one that they did anytime, because that movie rocks, and mostly because of the way they direct the hell out of it. So, plus a drunk Idris Elba is always a good time in my opinion.
Just imagine this movie. One of the girls is bilingual.
Oh yeah,
just completely incomprehensible, like
Yeah.
clearly coked up for
Mhm.
real, not just pretending to be a character. Bilingual.
Yeah, I could see it. So I will give the actresses credit too, because all of them know they're going to die these horrible deaths or whatever, and they seem to be having fun with the fact that like they're just going to get torn to shreds. Which is, I guess that's half the fun of it. If you do one of these movies, you're like, okay, how am I going to die? Right? Like have a little bit of fun with it, but
Yeah.
But I feel like Andrea Martin was like, no, they already did that to me once in '74. I need a different death. And that's
Yeah.
why she got the falling icicle.
Yeah.
Yeah. They gave her a different side. Oh, they gave her the Die Hard 2 death, or the what's the Saoirse Ronan, Stanley Tucci creepy movie?
Saoirse Ronan.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. It's got one of them. No, it's got one of them like strange names. Hold on. Let's see. It's like one of the first things I ever saw her in. Like Rachel and I went and saw it, and we thought, oh, this will be cool. And they were, The Lovely Bones. I clearly said all that. It's like a Die Hard 2 death, or The Lovely Bones if you want to get creepier. Which is the same idea. Spoiler alert, by the way, for movies that have been out for a long time, but it's how they go. But the thing is though, and the hang up I have about what doesn't work in this for me is when they do try to tie back in and they try to play this mystery the whole time. And I had no time, anytime I've seen this movie, am I ever surprised that there's two killers? Like, did that surprise either of you that Agnes was involved in this too? Because it had to be, right?
No, but they definitely tried to play it off like one of the sorority sisters was Agnes. I feel like.
Yeah, the mousy one with glasses, or
yeah.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Like,
and then we see her head off top of a Christmas tree and realize, oh, okay, she's dead. Because we never see her die. She just disappears at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
I feel like it would have worked better. That fake out would have worked even better if one of the sorority girls had been established as having had a glass eye.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they didn't. I guess they didn't want to make it too obvious that. I don't know what they were thinking.
Well, my thought was that she had glasses, so maybe she did have a glass eye, like a really good one. Maybe it wasn't noticeable because you only see her for a second.
Oh, that's right. Or yeah, maybe they put some kind of implant in there.
Yeah, but I think if they just rolled with that, but that was my first thought was, oh damn, yeah, maybe that's Agnes. It's about the right age, like.
Right.
She said the "you're my family too" or "you're my family now" line. Like that was the thing, and all her family's dead. Like this is lining up, and that's just what they want you to think.
It would have worked so much better if that had been part of it. I would say now, because having Agnes is just this other supernatural WWE monster. Doesn't really do much.
Agnes was definitely a supernatural WWE monster.
Yeah,
like. She was definitely inbred for sure.
Yeah, Agnes is coming out with Bo Dallas and the rest of them in the White Six.
Yeah, definitely, with like some real twisted, dueling banjos, but played by like Slayer or some shit, in the background.
Yeah, the reference to a wrestling angle that's happening right now is probably not going to age well, but who cares?
I don't know. I mean, this movie's referencing stuff that didn't age that great either. It doesn't matter. Podcasts are timeless. Or one or the other. But
podcasts are timeless in the fact that they come out of the recording process already like anachronistic.
Yeah. Well, I love that after 14 years of doing this, we no longer even worry about it. We're just like, yeah, okay. Kind of like the people that made this movie, just like, yeah, I don't know.
That's
Just
fine.
do things. But yeah, I've dropped it before that I didn't think there was like, other than the score, which is a mix of traditional Christmas music and that Nutcracker, eerie ass shit. That nothing about the soundtrack is memorable at all in my head. Y'all have any like needle drops, anything that just stuck out to you?
No, I mean, really just the sound design, the gushy
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Like that's my shout out. As far as
Yeah.
needle drops, I mean, I don't know. They played some good Christmas music. That was a nice, undertone to the mom
Mm-hmm.
cookies, but yeah, pretty much it. I don't know. Ron, do you have anything to add to that? Any notable needle drops?
That's a good question. I like that song that they play. Everybody's waiting for the man with the bag. I always like
Yeah.
that K Star. Everybody's waiting for the man with the bag. Christmas
Mm-hmm.
is here again. I always like that kind of. That's always one of my favorite Christmas songs, and it's underplayed, unlike all the other Christmas songs that have something other than the traditional to them. So,
Mm-hmm.
a big fan of that.
I mean, the Weinsteins were part of the production behind this, so they were going to drop some money on music and stuff like that. They were known for forcing that into there. Particularly Bob, he's more the horror geek than Harvey was, but as it were. What about that ending in the hospital though? Because I,
That felt
can't.
too long to me. I
Yeah,
feel
I
like
can't.
that could have really been cut.
Yeah,
I did
it
like the
took too
final
long.
death. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
but
took
you knew
too
that was
long.
coming. Like
Yeah,
they
yeah,
set
yeah.
that damn Christmas tree up. You knew that was going to happen, and the fact that he had to like cut her up halfway down the hall, I'm like, that was not necessary. Like Katie Cassidy could have just thrown him over the rail. That'd have been fine.
Yeah. Yep. But no, I did think that bit took too long. It just felt like, how many times is this dude gonna come back?
Mm-hmm.
How many times do we need to see this
Yeah,
trope?
it wasn't necessary, I don't think.
Can I say that I think part of the problem was, and I don't know that this was, they realized at the time, but just to me, I'm like, at that point, there's too many people still alive, so we got to kill a few more. I'm like, well, you take care of it before you. It should have just been Katie Cassidy left in the hospital, and then you have like that mini sequence in Cobra, again.
I mean, I
Except
don't
she
think there
throws
was
him in
anyone
the.
from the sorority still alive
There
at
was the
that
one.
point.
There was one of the friends was still in that pile, so because they get killed in there. Wasn't the one girl still from the sorority in there?
She was the older sister of a
Oh,
girl from
okay.
the
See,
sorority.
okay. Thank you again. Indistinguishable brunette number 6.
Yeah.
So I thought
Yep.
she was one of the sorority girls. Never mind. She looked younger than some of the sorority girls, even
She
though
I
she was
mean,
did.
I think she
older.
was younger than Crystal Lowe, who
Well, then maybe that was it. Yeah.
like when Crystal Lowe was on Teen Wolf, she was legit 30 years old. So,
Yeah. Which is not an uncommon thing to see, but it's just it's noticeable. Like
Well,
it just
it was
yeah.
noticeable at least on that show because she was cast against people who were actually like 18 and 19 years
Yeah,
old.
they were actually
Yeah.
teenagers. Yeah.
And
So
then here comes somebody who's getting her crow's feet sandblasted off every before taping.
low key, the first couple of seasons of that show are pretty good. I know you wrote about it Ron, when it was on, but
I sure did.
yeah, Teen Wolf's pretty. That was pretty solid concept. So
I just wonder, what do you think the actual sequel would have been like? Because Bob Clark, after the Black Christmas 2006 was kind of a dud, Bob
Mhm.
Clark started working on a sequel to the actual original film. He was going to bring back Olivia Hussey and John Saxon.
that would have. I cannot imagine where they would have picked up. Like I don't know because the first one ends and it's just like what? Like you don't know. You know nothing. Like it. I don't know. It would have been it would have been cool to see. But,
Well, Olivia Hussey was supposed to have played the house mother in the
the
sequel.
remake.
In the Bob Clark's sequel plan.
Yeah, that's what I meant. The sequel, but They never revealed like who the Billy, like what the motivations were or anything like that. So I don't know like what you would have picked up on unless
I think,
she had the kid, and I don't know.
yeah,
So,
or maybe Halloween 2 style. Jess was the sister, Agnes, who'd been adopted out.
oh, you mean Rob?
Mhm.
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, I guess both. We
In
got to
both
decide which
Halloweens
Halloween
too.
twos. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, both of them. You could do that.
I don't
So
remember. Was there a sister in the original one for Billy? I don't think so. I think Billy was just a weirdo.
He kept
we knew
talking about
so little
Agnes.
about Billy.
He did kept talking
Yeah,
about an Agnes. So,
but we didn't know who that was.
Yeah.
But you're right, Lindsay. We know nothing about Billy in that one. So I don't know where they would have gone with it. That's hard to tell.
So fun fact is hang on. Dean Friss, who plays Agnes, like older Agnes, had 0 acting experience before being in Black Christmas 2006.
Wow.
And has, quote, no desire to pursue a full-fledged acting career. But he was suggested for the role by Glenn Morgan, and he didn't really want to do it, but then was like, I mean, I guess. And everyone was like, cool, you're Agnes now. And that's how it happened. It's like they needed an Agnes, and Glenn Morgan was like, I know a guy.
Yeah,
And they
I
just
got
brought
this.
him in.
Just this random dude. So, well, I mean, he didn't have to give much of a performance, so I can't judge it. You know, I guess he died by defibrillator. Okay, I liked Emma
Yeah.
Roberts getting whacked by one better, but you know, it's
Yeah.
not an original
I mean,
way to kill
I
somebody.
had 0 issue with the performance as Agnes, like weird looking and big.
I mean, again,
and
you're a
yeah,
WWE super monster. That's
yeah,
it's wild to me how many people from this movie that Glenn Morgan was able to talk into being in Black Christmas just because they also worked with him on Final Destination 3.
yeah.
yeah. There's a real crossover to that. Yeah,
He
that's
was
a
like,
good Final
they were
Destination
cool.
movie.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good Final Destination, by the way, of the Final Destination series. It's a fun one. So
that's funny.
this is more from part 2, but I remember a lot about the series. There's things I won't do. Like I'm not getting in anything that like behind a truck with logs ever.
No,
Not going in anything that locks, tanning beds. That's out. Nope, we're standing up, or that ain't happening. You know,
yeah.
we're not doing that.
You could still lock the stand-up ones.
Well, as you can tell, I go so often in this visual medium that we're on. But yeah,
Podcast listeners at home, Jay is very white. Despite running outdoors regularly, he still somehow was very pale.
I use sunscreen because I'm in my late 40s. Skin cancer is a real thing, especially my family. So. But yeah, so all right. Well, I think we should skip the Shatner line reading since we're kind of done with his part of Star Trek anyway. But I want to hear your best Canadian line reading of any line in this movie, gang. So, Rod, you go first.
I'm sorry, but that fucking voice, that was not Megan or Kyle. That was the fucking devil. And he was not talking to us, he was talking to Billy.
No, you went to In Bruges so fast.
No, it sounded like Trailer Park Boys. That was perfect.
Yeah, I was going for like that kind of Nova Scotia.
Yeah,
There's a
White
little
trash
letter
voice there.
Kenny in there too. I want you to know that.
yeah.
To be fair. All right, Liz, let's see you find it.
Oh my God. I don't think I can. Every time I try to do an accent, I don't know. It comes out like a weird version of Russian. So, all right, here we go. It's I don't even know. All right. It tastes like chicken because see, I'm already slipping into, I don't know, something that's not Canadian. It tastes like chicken, because it is chicken. It was the closest we could get to tasting like mom.
I don't know I can top any of that, but here we go. Yeah, and Dick Cheney's a better sister than your sister.
A.
Yeah. So, well, much like the thud into this movie, I think we're at the part of the podcast where it's time to get final thoughts, recommendations, and popcorn ratings for our Christmas in July selection of
All right.
Black Christmas 2006. So, Ron,
Save
what
us
are
from
yours?
ourselves.
Well, before I go into my final thoughts, I'd like to apologize to any Canadians who listen to the podcast.
No Canadians were harmed in the making of these accents.
I apologize
no.
to all my Canadian friends, Frozen Lake, who did our theme music, my good friend Andrew. I apologize to you, sir. To a friend of mine and potential future guest, CJ Belanger from the Rose Suchak Ladder Christmas podcast. I do not apologize to you, you son of a bitch. You with your Kevin Owens accent. But yes, back to the movie. I had to shoehorn in another WWE reference with Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn. But so my final thoughts. This movie is stupid. The pacing is weird, but it's super gory. It has some legitimately funny stuff in it to me. It's not one you have to pay a ton of attention to. You just kind of look up when screaming starts, and then someone's getting like stabbed with a bag over their head. And to me, that makes it a great, like, I'm putting together Christmas presents, or I don't know what you do for Christmas in July, barbecuing something and watching it on my phone, or, just I'm sitting in front of the box fan trying not to die. So, you don't have to pay attention to it. You just kind of look up and there's always some interesting stuff happens. It looks good. It looks better than it has any right to. The sound design, like what Lindsey talked about, is super squishy and a lot of fun. I wouldn't say it's good necessarily, but there's a reason I watch it twice a year, and there's a reason I enjoy it so much. And I think one of the reasons why it was a natural pick, I think, for this podcast, because we could have fun talking about it and hopefully have fun watching it. I had fun watching it. I have fun watching it every time. So for that, I'm going to give it a medium popcorn with sprinkles in Christmas holiday spirit.
Nice. I agree with everything that you've said, Ron. I've had a ton of fun watching it. I definitely like it better than the original Black Christmas for all the reasons I think we've already laid out. I liked getting the Billy backstory, as gross as it was. I just like having, I don't know, I like having the background. It was fun with the like Hallmark Christmas movie gone bad type of cast. And I enjoyed watching it too. And I've watched it twice now in the last 3 weeks. So I think it'll definitely be at least on the Christmas in July docket for, years to come. I would also give it a medium popcorn, but I want like do you remember when they made colored microwave popcorn?
Yes. Yeah.
And you shake the bag and it dyed the popcorn. So like red dyed microwave bag popcorn. That's what I'm going to give it.
Nice.
In a good way.
Mm-hmm. This movie on its surface, just taking for what it is the small popcorn territory of all small popcorn territory horror remakes. Except instead of doing the dumb thing that this era did where everything was PG-13 and safe, they go for it. And I mean, they go for it. All the blood, the weird incest sex, as gross as it is, the skin stuff, all the nasty, back and forth. Like, this movie realized we can't play this safe because, first of all, we're not really remaking the original. We're just taking things from it and calling this the new thing of it. And if we're going to do it, let's go for it. And I will give this movie credit for going for it and continuing to go there. We talked about some of the big kills, the blood splatter in the car, all the stabbings in the face and the eyes, and even that dumbass Christmas tree twirl around and the guts are hanging off the top of it. You know what? Yeah, that's what I want out of this kind of dumbass shit. Like that's what you need. Is if Friday the 13th 6 had played it lame, or 7 had played it safe, like those movies would suck. But they don't, because there's all kinds of splatter, and even though you don't necessarily root for these girls to get killed, you kind of get it, and you're sort of okay because they're the archetypes of all the evil things you think of, that type of person, and they're fun, and the cast looked like they had a good time doing it. The banter's good, so yeah, I give it a medium popcorn. And since it's that time, Lindsay, you talked about the microwavable kinds you could get. I remember when you could get the colored flavor, like candied popcorn, and there was some that was like this strawberries and cream flavor. So I would say get you some of that. Strawberries and cream.
I remember that.
Colored popcorn, and you've got Black Christmas 2006. So, but Ron, as you said it, the best part of this was getting to relive it with the two of you, and always a good time chatting it up about this. Ron, what do you got going on at Den of Geek right now?
Oh, I've had a pretty busy July. I had late June and July. I've had 3 feature articles come out. One on Robert Shin, the alleged cult leader who is the guy behind all those viral TikTok dance videos. One about a dude whose name escapes me, but he is the star of the star. I'll use that in quotation marks. He's the Billy Lenz of the Lethal Landlord episode of the Netflix Blumhouse show Worst Roommate Ever. It's a really fun show, and it's a really interesting case. And it also, funnily enough, revolves around TikTok, because a TikTok went viral of the people who found the pieces of chopped up bodies in suitcases on the beach in Seattle. And the third feature that I wrote, speaking of incest and corpses and eyeballs being gouged out, I wrote a feature on the hit HBO show House of the Dragon, where I run down the dragons that have what the dragons did in season 1 and what the dragons have done so far in season 2, and what dragons have yet to be introduced, and if those dragons did anything cool when they were introduced. So I did a pretty big feature about dragons, and one of those, there's also a guy who gets an eye gouged out, and there's lots of incest because it's Targaryens.
Of course.
So, if you like Black Christmas, you'd love House of the Dragon.
Oh, well put, well put. Well, folks, thanks again for joining us on this episode. You can follow the show on all the social media at Film Strip Pod, where you'll find announcements about upcoming shows, all that kind of stuff. Please subscribe, share the show on your socials. It helps other people find the show. And if you can, leave us a positive review on Spotify or Apple, wherever you're getting it. We appreciate you listening. All these years, we're still having fun and kicking off, and lots of fun stuff to come. We've got the Star Trek series still running. We've got some fun stuff already in the can to get into August. And then we are lining up a banger of a Shocktober this year. We're just going to say it like that. We've lined up some fun guests and a fun 4-pack of flicks to get into as we round of the year. And, we are getting eerily close, gang, to episode 400. And so I'm just going to put it to the listeners right now. At Film Strip Pod on X, on Facebook, on Instagram, drop us a note of what you think we ought to do for episode 400. We'll take it under advisement. We're looking for options, but when Big 400 comes around, we want to hear from you. What do you think we ought to cover? And if you're curious, have we covered it before? Well, just go to your pod feed of choice, and you'll look through that massive archive, and there's a chance we probably have checked it out. So. Do take a look, but yeah, drop us suggestions for episode 400.
Or
be looking at those.
Or if you pitch us a movie we've already done, either Jay or myself will reply to you on the X account with a GIF of the big red X from Family Feud popping up, and then Steve Harvey making ridiculous face,
and probably a link to the episode so that you can download and listen to it again. Because I don't watch the numbers of this podcast. That's not why we do it. But it does amaze me sometimes to just randomly look at back episodes and see like this weird little spike. Like somebody just really wanted to hear Fright Night. And there it is. So yeah, all that stuff there in our feed. looking forward to coming around to it.
Everyone, please request that Jay write a Travis Tritt plot summary song again.
That was a one-time deal, but from last October, and also last October contains one of the best practical jokes of all time on our friend Anthony podcast. That we were diabolical last year, so who knows what will come around the bend. So until next time, for Lindsey and Ron, I'm Jay. Thank you for listening to Film Strip.
Thank you for listening to Film Strip. You can find more episodes on our website, filmstrippodcast.com. The Film Strip theme music is produced and performed by Frozen Lake 121. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.